All right, check, 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 and we are recording. All right, recording starting.
What is up?
What is up, Aid? All right, so you know how I do this. I'm gonna drink. So I've been talking a lot of shit on my TikTok page. I even went so far as the other day to say, "I'll see you in the fucking Bronx." I got pissed off a lot of people the other day. But between me and you, it's like we've been watching all these games, very closely for the last couple of weeks. And if anybody doesn't know, this is my son Aidan, and besides me being one of the biggest Met fans I know, this is probably the biggest Met fan that I know. And he gets pretty emotional during these games. And I figured if we'd go on tonight so he could explain from a younger fan's perspective, and I could explain from an older fan's perspective about why we take this stuff of being a Mets fan so seriously. So there's a couple of things I want to talk to you about, Aid. But mostly what I want to talk to you about is like, what do you like? Why do you feel? You know what? Let's not even talk about that first. Let's talk about the game first. Then we'll go into our feelings and stuff. So take us from the emotional roller coaster that me and you were on the last couple of weeks. Like when did this team start to actually come around to you? Because if you want to explain to everybody out there,
Well, I
we
mean,
took a break from this team in the beginning. Let's go all the way to the beginning.
from the beginning, I always think I had faith in the team, even though after last year, we really did suck last year. But like every year, I think you could say this for every fan. They just come into the year thinking their team is going to be the best team in the series or in the league. So coming into the year, I did have a lot of faith, but we just sucked. We went 0-5 to start the year. I remember we went to the second game against the Brewers and we lost, and then we had that whole thing with what's his name, from the Brewers. He was a Philly.
Yes,
His
pitcher.
name? No, not the pitcher.
Oh, Reese Hoskins.
Yeah, Reese
Like,
Hoskins. We had that whole thing with Reese Hoskins, but
right.
overall, like up until about like May, the Mets just were not a good baseball team at all.
And I
And
think
like,
even I use the analogy, like, back then, even, because it seems to be like I do this a lot, you do this a lot, like, when you're breaking up with a girlfriend or something, or you really want to be with somebody, going on a little break. I even said to you in the beginning, probably like the end of April, beginning of May, I just thought, just being a Met fan longer than you, I thought this was just going to be another shit season. I said, you know what, let's take a little break, a little 2 week break, and, not watch any games, not really talk any Mets baseball.
I mean, yeah, that did happen. There, I don't. Yeah, it was about like early June is around when I started to watch again. Then I remember because we went camping. I think that was late. That was like the end of June. We went camping. I remember being really into it by that point. But I think it was early June when I started to watch again, and that's like when we started to take off. And that's when the whole grimace thing happened, and that's also when Jose Iglesias came up. I'm pretty sure. So that's when we started to do good again, and then from that point, we just we just skyrocketed. We were the best team in baseball from then. But July, I'm pretty sure we had a bad July.
Let me stop you there for a second because I was talking to somebody about this the other day. Now, I said the other day that like Derek Jeter said, nothing with the gimmicks. Forget about the gimmicks. The Mets are just a good baseball team. Now, me personally, all the whole gimmicks thing with the grimace and the Huck to a girl, and even the gay pride flag, and they tried to pin a bunch of these gimmicks on the Mets. But for some reason, no gimmicks really get put onto the other side, to the Yankees or anything like that. You never hear about gimmicks because you know what? The Yankees are a no nonsense team. There's no gimmicks. The Yankees are winning or they're losing. Right now, they're winning. They're on their way to the World Series. But I kind of like, look, they're fun and everything, but our teams don't win because of gimmicks. Like, how do you feel about these like gimmicks that are being attached to the Mets this year?
I think it's fun, but I think it's fun, but like you said, it doesn't have any real significance on how the players play the game. It can maybe give the players some motivation to play good because there's a new meme coming around, right? The Rizzler saved our
Oh, the
season.
Rizzler did save our season.
Yeah, right. It was kind of crazy that whenever a meme popped up, the Mets would just kind of score a bunch of runs and just would go on some kind of streak. But like you said before, it doesn't really affect the gameplay at all.
Right.
So I guess it just adds some fun to the team, but overall, it doesn't really do much.
So even at the beginning of talking, let's get rid of the gimmicks then. All gimmicks aside, like 'cause I kind of agree that this team was just a really good baseball team, and we're going to do a little comparison of the 2022 team in a second. But I think all gimmicks aside, I think when you start seeing people like Tyrone Taylor and Jose Iglesias and all these role players that were supposed to be just like role players or people that we didn't even know who the hell they were the first day of the season. Who Jose Iglesias is 34 years old. and he came up. He said he didn't want to play anywhere else. If you need me, just send me up. So I think that there was a whole influx of kids that just happened to catch on at the right time, and they're young too, and I think it's just a matter of just good hitting, and maybe like something that Francisco Lindor at the beginning of the season. But I think once those guys started like hitting, like guys like Lindor, there's a little bit of pressure off of him. Alonso, there's a little bit of pressure off of him, even though Alonso had a bad season. But when you get the rest of the team that's hitting, it's like, what do you think about that? Like the influx of the new players that have come in this year.
Well, I mean, I think it just like it starts. You say it starts like it's because they were hitting well. But I think it's really because when they became like a family after that. After what's his name, Lopez. I think whoever threw his glove into the
Yeah,
stands,
I remember. Yeah,
Lindor. He called that team meeting, and whatever was said in that team meeting, I guess something clicked. And the next day they were winning again, or they started to win baseball games, and they had that new celebration where they did this whenever they got a hit. And then ever since then, they just started to play together. And then like I mean, it was the same team the entire season, and it's just kind of crazy to think that it was the same team the entire. You know what I mean? That it's like this is the same team from May when they were losing all these ball games and when they were sucking, and it's just like it's crazy to think how far they really came.
like at one point in the season, there were 11 games below 500.
Yeah,
Okay, and then they crawled their way back, and all of a sudden we're watching, we're seeing the Sun win games. And then we're like, oh my god, they lost. They were going on some winning streaks. Now they're above 500. They're 3 games above 500. And all of a sudden, like we look at this team in September, and I can remember looking at you in the first week of September. It's like, hey, we're watching relevant September baseball.
yeah,
So, and at one point in my mind started to click and like, wait a second, they got something here because they were beating teams like Atlanta. They were beating teams like they really didn't play the Phillies that much in the beginning. They waited to the end, but they were starting to beat teams that normally, and they were starting to do things that normally we would say is a Met thing to do. Like, balls would just roll their way. Like, calls would
yeah.
just go their way. So they would beat teams and do things in the ninth inning that, good teams do. So I guess around September, I started to think to myself, it's like, wow, it's like we're going to be seeing some good baseball, and it became pretty fun in September.
Yeah. So I mean, it was a really fun year, and it was crazy how far we came. But I think looking forward, I hope David Stern still has to do a lot to make this team be able to compete with the Dodgers. Because I mean, like I said, it was a great year, but like I feel like some of these players, right, they kind of just like fed off of the energy of like the moment and being on the team and like being for the year. I feel like a lot of these players, if we were to send out the same exact team next year, I don't think we would probably go as far.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I think we have to do a good job in the off season, bring in more star power and more bullpen help to actually have a good year next
All
year.
right, so you're jumping ahead a little bit to next season, but it's still like kind of like so. What you're kind of saying is you looked at this Met team as a team that they were just a bunch of guys that were playing good baseball, and they were never going to beat the Dodgers in the first place. Is that kind? Now, I'm
No,
not
I
saying that you
mean,
didn't think that they were, but I'm saying is they just looked like if you look at the Mets lineup and you look at the Dodgers lineup, like the Mets lineup could compare to the Dodgers lineup if you want to go on momentum and what they did in
exactly.
big
But on
spots. But
paper, it doesn't at all.
but when you look at the lineups, they're like, you look at it's like a lot of people in Major League Baseball look at this lineup and say, who's Tyrone Taylor? It's like, who's Jose Iglesias? It's like Mark Vientos is their third baseman. Wasn't Mark Vientos in the minors last year? Like you look at that lineup up and down, it's like that lineup is the future of what you can see of what's going on in that Dodgers lineup because wherever you look in that Dodgers lineup, they're going to hurt you. And it doesn't matter who it is. It's even that little shortstop there batting fourth. Guy like 8 RBIs the other night. I mean, there's zero holes in that lineup. And when you have a guy like Shohei Ohtani that leads off, and then Mookie Betts is number two,
It's
and then
unfair.
in a real no injury world, you got Freddie Freeman, and it's just like guy after guy after guy, and Max Muncy. So I kind of got caught up in our moment, thinking that wow, these guys could quite possibly do it. But I kind of got caught up into a perspective of you know, they're like the underdogs that can do it. And I think that they may be like the point that you were trying to get to is maybe a year or two away from being that they don't do it. They have to do it this year because I think that me and you were more upset about this loss because it was an emotional thing because we didn't think that they were going to get there as opposed
We
to
weren't supposed to.
thinking that they were going to get there and being let down. So I want to take us
So
back to like to see how like we follow these teams. Like when you woke up that morning and said, let's go to this watch party. Right now, when I went to that watch party and I saw like it was like 1,000 people, maybe there's a couple thousand people there, right?
yeah,
And when all that stuff was going on, just the stadium erupted. and it's like, wow, they got the fans behind them. And they just went on this run where they beat Atlanta, they beat the Phillies, and then they just ran into, the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I think me and you felt the same way last night. I think that once that they went up a certain amount, I think I went to bed, and I think like you kind of like knew also that just the season was going to be over, and that feeling of just like disappointment, and I'm like, wow, I was like, we were almost there. I mean, how did you feel like going into like actually seeing that the score and leading up to knowing that they were going to lose last night?
Just sucked.
Yeah,
I mean, simple as that. I mean, I saw that it was what I think 6-3 or something like that, and I really thought it was the bottom of the seventh or bottom of the eighth, and I honestly had a feeling that we were gonna come back into the ninth. We were gonna start hitting. We were gonna make it interesting because I think we were down by 3 runs in the eighth, but then Kodai Senga came in and gave up like 4 runs, and then it was just over at that point. It really is just like it is really heartbreaking, but like I heard Howie Rose, like if you listen to Howie Rose at the end of he called the last inning last night, and if you just listen to that, it's like this team really was not supposed to make it this far at all. It was a transitional year. This was a year I mean the front office in the beginning of the year said that they weren't really playing for 2024, they were playing for 2025. So I mean, like when I hear things like that, it's like it really. The thing that sucks about it is that we have to wait. For now, we have to watch the Dodgers and the Yankees win the world, or one of their team. One of them are going to win the World Series. We have to watch that happen. We have to wait through the first couple of months when there's no free agency going on. It's just now it's a waiting game, pretty much, where it just kind of sucks that you have to wait 1 year from now to get this point again. But looking ahead in the future, I think we do have a bright future because we have named people like Ronnie Mauricio, who's going to come back from injury this year. Acuna, he's going to have his first full year as a rookie.
that's exciting. Definitely
We
exciting.
have Drew Gilbert. We have, I think, Jet Williams, I think is his name. We have all these young guys coming. We have Brett Beatty. All these young guys. We're gonna throw the house at Juan Soto. I mean, we really do have a bright future coming up. It just sucks that we have to wait so long.
That leads me to a question. Like, like that's that. That being said, kind of like the gist of what we're trying to say is like it was really upsetting that when they lost last night, and I wanted just to get out there and just say like I want to say thank you to the New York Mets and just giving us like a season of a kind of like putting this crazy politics on the shelf and putting all the other stuff in the world on the shelf and just like being able to watch your baseball team succeed and not really thinking they would succeed and just to like grow and grow and give this angst and like give this all these emotions that you go through to a point where you really think that they're going to win and they get you there and then they just suck the life out of you. It's all part of the game, and like I appreciate that this year from the New York Mets that what they gave us. And for lack of a better term, me and you as a father and son, like that is one of our bonds. As a father and son too. It's like you think about and like you're a Mets fan and I'm a Mets fan. Like, I wouldn't think of anybody that I want to watch those games with. It's it's kind of sad, but I just want to say thank you to the New York Mets for giving us a good season to watch.
Now, does that lead us into our next terrible subject?
Well, you know what? Let's let you take that terrible subject. You kick that terrible subject off because I really didn't pay attention to that subject last night. Come a little closer because you're going to introduce this
So
topic.
it's like I didn't really. So we're talking about the Jets right now.
Exactly. Let's go right into the Jets.
I don't really have much to say about the Jets, honestly, because of what happened to the Mets last night either.
Right.
But I think it's just like at this point, it's just because they're the Jets that they just suck so bad. I mean, like we can have prime Tom Brady with Bill. Like Tom Brady can come out of retirement and Bill Belichick can come coach the Jets next season. We can have the greatest offensive line in the world, and we would not win a game next year.
Yeah. Like I haven't.
It starts at minute. I mean, it starts at ownership.
Right. So you think you were all for like Salah gets fired, right? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
They didn't do enough in that moment. It should have been Salah and Hackett, not just Salah.
Okay.
Because now you're looking at it that the defense is playing much worse without Salah. So it's like, should they have even fired Salah in the first place? I think they should have either fired both of them, Hackett and Salah, or they should have only fired Nathaniel Hackett.
Now, I got a little bit of a different take on like what's happened. I think they should definitely fire Salah. I think that they need the Jets. I've been saying from the beginning they need to get somebody in there that's gonna be like he's gonna yell at Aaron Rodgers. He's gonna tell Aaron Rodgers that he fucked up because you know what though. At the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers, he's a good quarterback, but he's screwing up a little bit too. But I don't think any one of these guys has it in them to tell Aaron Rodgers when he screwed up. If you want to look at last night's game too, I did see a couple of things. Devontae Adams. Okay, we're all excited about Devontae Adams. Those first two passes that he missed, that wasn't Aaron Rodgers' fault. Devontae Adams didn't know how to run the route. Okay, so I think from a perspective of everybody's saying Aaron Rodgers is running the team. Okay, you want to say that Aaron Rodgers is running the team. I think a lot of Jet fans are saying that. But I think from a coaching perspective, there's nobody on that team right now that's going to put their foot down and tell Aaron Rodgers to shut up. So I think Aaron Rodgers is pushing the envelope as much as he can. There was a funny thing said out there the other day that our new kicker is going to be Pat McAfee because, Aaron Rodgers is getting all his friends on the team. I think Aaron Rodgers is just kind of pushing the envelope as much as he can. He's like, all right, I can get this guy, get that guy. Nobody's stopping me. No one's telling me no. And I think Saleh did that to Rodgers. Saleh didn't have the balls to tell Rodgers no. And again, this guy Ulbrich, he could yell and scream all he wants, but I don't think he has the balls to tell Aaron Rodgers no either. So I think the Jets right now are definitely in a position where they're talent-wise, they're a great football team. They have, Hassan Reddick is coming back, and if you believe the rumors that Devontae Adams called them up and said, "Listen, you better get your ass here." You could say that all you want, but end of the day, Hassan Reddick's going to be a Jet. So look at their defense and their offense on paper. We have Hall of Fame quarterback. We got 3 wide receivers that are supposed to be they can be number ones anywhere else. Garrett Wilson, unhappy. Who's saying that? There's so many stories revolving around the fact that there's no head coach, and there hasn't been a head coach on the New York Jets since Rex Ryan. There hasn't been a guy there that's going to be a disciplinarian to tell these guys something when they are screwing up. I mean, and I think, when I said to you, Salah should be fired, should he be fired? Yeah, I guess so, because he literally did absolutely nothing. Now, what's your take on the coaching situation? Like, why do you think that's a problem?
I mean, if you just look at the penalties,
Perfect.
the team is just it was so undisciplined underneath Robert Saleh, and I guess they still are pretty undisciplined in general, just because of there was 22 total penalties against the Bills
Right.
that 2 weeks ago. It's just ridiculous. I think you're right. I think they should totally try and bring back Rex Ryan. Honestly,
I'm just saying that kind of type.
That kind of type, exactly. But there's nobody. The Jets won't be able, as long as Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet, he'll be able to do whatever he wants. Just because the Jets pretty much sold their entire they did whatever they could to just bring Rodgers to the Jets in the first place.
Right.
He's just like a king there now, and he can literally do whatever he wants.
Right. Here's the scenario. The scenario that I'm talking about. I'm sorry to cut you off, but I want to say the scenario that I'm talking about. The scenario I'm talking about is Aaron Rodgers throws a blatant interception.
Yeah.
He blows everything. Comes jogging off. He knows he's mad at himself. But the coach doesn't have the balls to say, listen, Aaron Rodgers going, nah, I know. But he doesn't have the balls to say, no, I know you know, but get your ass over here, and we're going to talk about what you just did. Don't brush me off. And there's no discipline there with any of these players.
Well, it starts with Woody Johnson.
Yep, I agree.
It just starts with Woody Johnson. I think he needs to sell the team. There needs to be new ownership, because then the new ownership can. Joe Douglas, I think, is really good. Joe Douglas is doing exactly what he has to do to bring in the right players. Because, like you said, if you look at the team on paper, this is a Super Bowl caliber team, but there is just zero playbook, zero coaching in general. I mean, you have Devontae Adams, Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and now Mike Williams, right? And you have Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, two really good running backs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you think of the problem, right? The play calling. Why are we doing so many? There's so many short passes. There's so many just runs up the middle. There's no creativity with anything at all. There's no play actions. The other team just knows exactly what they're doing, and it's just too what's the word? It's too
vanilla. It's too every day. It's too predictable.
But then at the same time, it's like the Jets. I think they just have to be cursed, because I saw it in that game the other night. The Steelers almost had a pick six.
Mm-hmm.
The pick six, it was a ball thrown directly at Garrett Wilson. It went right through his hands. It hit Garrett Wilson right in the chest. Bounced off to him. Went right into the Steelers' hands, and they ran it all the way back to the 1 yard line.
Yeah. Now,
It's Aaron Rodgers' fault too, and it's just a combined. It's just a combined being of the New York Jets.
right, and again, it goes back to my theory, and I know everybody's sick of hearing it. When Joe Namath does die, the Jets are going to win a Super Bowl because that is the curse. That's the curse of all curses. Joe Namath sold his soul to the devil. I'm not going to go into it again. You guys see me say it all the time. But the Jets are definitely a product of bad coaching. Maybe not even bad coaching. Maybe just not disciplinary coaching. Because again, you need somebody in there. Like again, I don't know. I know I keep bringing Rex Ryan's name up, but he's the only guy I can think of. Would he come off that that dais and, on NFL Today, whatever show he's on now to coach the Jets. But I think that he would get that disciplinarian factor because, even 30 years ago, 20 years ago when he was coaching, he was young. Now he's an older guy. His father was a prick. So maybe he could become a prick, and I don't know, maybe they do. But they have to bring somebody in there with old guy knowledge, an old guy. I'm an old curmudgeon, and I'm just going to yell and scream at you guys until you get it right because there's a lot of talent on this football team that's being absolutely wasted by 1-2-3 punt or hand off to Brees Hall. Up, that doesn't stop. Little out to Garrett Wilson. That doesn't work. Aaron Lazard, post. It's a terrible. It's a vanilla offense, and it's got all predictable. And there's no characteristics in that make it different. It's easy to figure out, and it's embarrassing for the New York Jets to have these great players but have nothing to do with it.
Wasting the end of his career. It's like we have the chance to watch Aaron Rodgers in a New York Jets uniform, but it will not matter at all.
No, it absolutely won't because of the fact that you're right. It's
That's what sucks about it.
Yeah, and again, I really do think it has something to do with the fact that the Jets are cursed, and when Joe Namath dies, that's when that's when that's when they're going to win the Super Bowl. All right, so I got to get on here and rant about 20 minutes about our team. Is anything else you want to bring up? I won't keep you too long.
I don't got nothing else.
You don't got nothing else? You don't want to talk about how Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James or anything like that?
Just kidding. It just kind of sucks that as someone who's trying to go into like the sports field, the two teams that I get to deal with are the New York Mets and New York Jets.
Now, let's explain this first. I want you to explain something. If I ask you a question now, it's like, what is a fan? Like, what is a fan to you?
Well, it's someone who is sticking through. It's someone through. It's somebody who's been there through thick and thin. You know what I mean?
Right.
And as a Mets fan and a Jets fan, it's just like I think they can be considered some of the realest fans because they've only been there through the thick, and there hasn't been much thin recently at all. You know what I mean?
Well,
So it's like I see some people like just trying to like if the Mets were to win the World Series this year, which I mean they didn't, and like so many people would have just hopped on the bandwagon, and I just feel like so many people would like try to like call some people Met fans like fake fans. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah,
but
of
it's
course
just like you don't know what we've been through the past however many years it's been.
But
so
I think that's a main characteristic of being a fan because at some point you declare yourself a fan of a certain team. It doesn't, when you're young, either it's like, you could either go the route like, you like their helmets or you like the one player and you just stuck with the team or your dad liked that team or you went against everybody in your neighborhood because everybody else liked the Yankees and you just wanted to like the Mets. But I think once you start sticking to that, being the fan, it's almost as exhilarating as having the Yankees have 27 championships, as the Mets only having 2, to a point where when they get there, the exhilaration of them getting there, I think, is almost more because not saying that Yankee fans are used to it. Yankee fans are almost like I heard the quote one day that I was listening to the fan, and a Yankee fan had said that it's my birthright as a Yankee fan to compete for the World Series every year. Now, I thought that was one of the douchiest things I ever heard said about fandom, but that's why Yankee fans are the way they are because they wake up every March and they look at that roster and say, yeah, we're going to win the World Series. It doesn't matter who's on that roster. That symbol of the New York Yankees is, we're going to win the World Series. So that being said, me and you, we wake up and we see that symbol and it's like, oh my God, I hope we could just get there. It's like, I haven't seen one in this many years, but the anticipation of us seeing a World Series, like, I don't know what I would have done. Like up at this point, I was very happy where they were. And I said, they can only get through the wild card. Oh, that'll be enough. They can only get through the NLDS. That'll be enough. Now it's like then they're NLCS. I'm like, oh my God, if they get the World Series, that'll be enough. Because it's almost like you want a little more and you want more and more. It's like drugs, you get a little more at a time. But the Yankee fan, it's like, you got your whole load blown at once. And then when you don't make it, it's like, oh my God, you guys suck. Cashman's a loser. Fire this guy. Aaron Judge, Lawrence. It's like the minute they do something bad, it's like you're off. You're off. Of course, you don't leave completely because you're a Yankee fan, but us, it's like, oh my God, just like the Mets being the Mets, and the Yankees are fans just like, Yankees suck. So I think fandom is very like, it's very loosely based on, where it came from, but I think it's more based on resiliency for that specific team. Because also, if you're hanging out with the same buddies that you have for years, like you got your group of friends, right? And I'm not saying you would ever do this, but I'm just using it as an example. Oh yeah, a lot of Yankee fans, you're the Met fan. You fight it off every day like I do. And one day, 10 years down the line, say you don't see Megley for like 5 or 6 years, and the Mets have just shit the bed, and you, whatever, and you run into Megley in a bar and you're wearing a Yankee hat. And you have friends from work that are like, you're right there watching a Yankee game with your buddies, and you have a Yankee hat on, and Megley walks into the bar and is like, oh, Murph, I haven't seen you in such a long time. What's going on? I thought you were a Met fan. See? And like, that would never happen. But that's where fandom, like in resiliency of fandom, like you have to be that person that sticks it out no matter what. How many times have I said to people like, "Oh, the Jets are killing me, the Mets are killing me," but at the end of the day, I'm never gonna stop being a fan of a team. It's just a little crazy. So, all right, dude, that's a nice little one. We got almost a half hour. Anything else you want to say? All right, well, listen, we're gonna have Aidan in future podcasts because I think he does a good job. I think he's a little tired tonight.
I'm exhausted.
And he's exhausted, but it was a little bit of a mission trying to get him to come on. But all right, Aid, thanks a lot, and we're gonna do something over the weekend with Ian. I want you to get involved in too. So we're gonna start doing our football picks again. So, all right, dude. And also, I want to do something this week on Caitlin Clark and the WNBA. I think the WNBA is underpaying Caitlin Clark. Like
you realize the WNBA is over now.
I did. The Liberty won, and that's Sabrina Ionescu chick. She's a pretty good basketball player, and hey, you know what? She missed a game-winning shot the other night, and I was watching the highlights of the game, and she put up the shot, and she missed the shot. And my first thought in my head, it's like, who would have made that shot? Caitlin Clark. Murphy Dub Show, guys. Come check us out. I keep talking 365 at YouTube. Check it out.